After writing 2 transformational books myself and supporting many other beings to do the same, I've become enthralled by the deep and mysterious magic that's activated when we choose to say yes to ourselves and commit to the book writing journey. Of course, we want to inspire change and new perspectives in our readers, but the transformation that happens as an author, both throughout the writing process and by actually releasing your book into the world, is surprisingly potent. I know I've been blindsided in the most disruptive and delicious ways by some of the changes my books have brought into my life. Writing a book is like casting a spell. Although we can never be completely sure what's going to be unleashed during the process, we choose to do it anyway. This Unbound one is a heroic journey. Each book has the potential to be a magical portal, a doorway to a new world, both for you and your reader. Each book has a very specific medicine that it's here to share with us. And each book gives us the opportunity to alchemize the magnificent imperfection of our experience into gold. The truth is that anyone can write a book. We could all get a few thousand words down and put them together. But what fascinates me is what happens when we allow the book writing process to go deeper. When we say, fuck it, get naked and dive way down beneath the surface. Letting go of the shoulds and any need to be acceptable, sensible, or approved of. What fascinates me is what happens when we make ourselves fully available to being transformed by the very act of writing a book. This is Unbound Writing, and this is the process we'll be exploring together here in the Unbound Writers Club. I'm Nicola, author and founder of the Unbound Press, and I help magical beings to write the transformational book they're really here to write at this time. I'm your guide here in the Unbound Writers Club, and the aim of this podcast is to help you to feel supported, encouraged, activated as you embark on your book writing journey. Whether you're a first-time author or have many books out in the world, my hope is that you will find something here to inspire you. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Unbound Writers Club. Today I am joined by one of our magical Unbound Press authors, Carol Cavalcante. Carol is the author of our very first collection of poetry at the Unbound Press. It's called Growing Flowers from Within, and it's really about this healing journey out of darkness. And this is based on Carol's own experience, particularly during lockdown. Carol is based in Canada, and when we first connected, which was in the summer of 2021, she had been through this deeply healing and transformational process over the past kind of year, 18 months or so, as many of us had. And what had come out of that for her was this most incredible collection of poetry. And as she spoke to me about it and her vision for the book, what she wanted to help activate in others, I was like, yeah, I'm in. This sounds amazing. So in this book, Carol explores the spiritual path and the lessons one can gain through their own personal cycle of healing. The book is divided into sections aimed at sharing messages to help and inspire you to heal your soul. She compares the awakening process to the rebirth and rising of the lotus flower. Despite the stuck and lonely feeling one may experience when going through heavy, dense waters, it's the story of finding the inner lost seeds to grow your flowers once again. It's so, so powerful. And I know you're going to love this conversation with Carol today. So, yeah, let me introduce you to her. Here we go. So, Carol, welcome to the Unbound Writers Club.
Hi, Nicola. Thanks for having me here today.
I'm so excited for us to have this conversation and about your book being released into the world. But before we dive into that, I always start these conversations with the same question, which is, what does it mean to you to be an unbound writer?
I think for me, an unbound writer is the idea of honoring yourself, honoring your voice, your intuition, and go for whatever it tells you, even if it's weird, random, against the norms, wild, whatever you call it. It's like listening. It's that ability to just trust and listen and go for it.
Oh, yeah. I think especially if it's weird and random and against the norm, actually.
Yeah, and it could be even time-wise, like, like you're in a shower or I don't know, it's 3 a.m. and you can't quite sleep well and you wake up, but you turn out to have this awesome idea of something that you want to do. Like it's just that thing that makes you inspired, that gives you that spark, that gives you that, wow, this makes sense. This is me. This flows natural. This is serene. This is good. This is wild, but also peaceful. It also it's a mix of emotions, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
think the word itself like says it, unbound. It's like no restrictions. You're free. You're like limitless, like a bird, like limitless.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. And you were doing this like before we connected, because when we did speak for the first time, which was around about a year ago, I guess.
Yeah, the first time I met you, yeah.
Yeah.
It was about a year ago, yeah.
And you'd already kind of written most of Growing Flowers from Within. And you'd been through this process of, bringing it through, writing it, like this gorgeous, gorgeous
Wow.
collection of poetry. And I just wonder, if you could let us know a bit more about how you started to do that. What was the journey like?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked me this because I never sat, it's the Unbound way, I guess. I never really sat and prepared a script like, oh, I'm going to be a writer today. I'm going to write a book. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that if that's your process. But for me, it was really loose. Like I was in the midst of lockdowns like everyone, and I was in need of the social contact. I wanted to express my emotions, the things that I was feeling at the time. And I didn't have much contact. So I started journaling. That was my process. So I began journaling and writing my emotions. It might not sound like I am shy, but I'm an extremely shy person. So the idea of being able to write my emotions actually flow better to me in this process of growing and learning how to express and learning how to be unbound, expressing myself.
Mm.
So I started the process journaling with no intention of making it into a book, to be honest. It was around, I think, when I had like around 30 to 40 pages of content that I looked around and I was like, this might actually be good for someone else as well. Especially given the conditions that we were all in globally. I thought, I can't be possibly the only person isolated and dealing with mix of emotions and not able to, process them or trying to find a way to cope. So I thought this could be a tool for other people. I mean, not that I have all the answers or anything, by no means I do. Like, trust me, I'm a baby in this process of spiritual journey. But I thought it could work as an inspiration or a comfort or even a friend. A book, it can be a friend. So that was when the thing started to thick in my mind, like, oh, maybe I should turn this into a book. But then I was like, how am I going to do this? I've never been a writer. Like, it's so difficult to start. So I went through these publishers and none of them felt quite right for me. Like, it's just the feeling. And again, that's a little bit of the Unbound, the intuition, the feeling, the process, until I met you. I didn't want it to sound so poetic, but I was like, a little pause until I met you, but it's true. Like, it was really true. Like, when I connected with you, it was just, I remember our first conversation, I was still very emotional. I cried even. Um, but it just made sense. It was like talking to a friend, like to a person that I knew for a long time, even though it wasn't the case. And for me, the way that things happen, even knowing the company, the Unbound, was very random. I followed a yogi person who happen to know a yogi other person who wrote a book
Mm.
to your company, and then I went to research, and then I was like, oh wow, this is a place I
Yeah.
want to be. Yeah,
Yay! I'm so happy about that.
yeah, yeah.
I love like those connections that happen, like quite random connections, like, just from one person to another, and people find their way, to us or wherever they need to be. So I'm so grateful that you did that. And, it sounds from what you were saying there, Carol, that you weren't even really writing. Like, were you journaling before
Uh, when
lockdown,
I
or
was
did it
a
really
kid,
start?
no, like I journaled when I was a kid, like 12. Like I had a little diary, like but it was very juvenile, like, it's like, oh, I had a crush on this guy. Like, this was actually my first time really journaling, really get to know myself and my emotions, because and I really believe that the lockdowns, they sort of had that impact on me. They triggered that point because I was in a position where I couldn't travel to be with family. I was kind of stuck in my own space, locked in. And so I couldn't put my emotions under the carpet. I
Mm.
had to, you know, normally I would put them on the carpet and I would just go about my life and work and don't care too much and dismiss it. But this time I really had to. So I think in a way for me, it was the triggering that helped me in this process of journaling. And I don't know, for me, it was amazing in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think the lockdowns kind of activated a lot of people to kind of connect more deeply with themselves and maybe to shift the way they were expressing themselves and connecting with their emotions, which is quite clearly the case for you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was always introspective, but I never really had this opportunity to sit and not think about work. 3D life. Like it was always 3D work, work, bills, and stuff. So in a way, I was locked in, and then I had to deal with everything, the emotions that I was experiencing, and it wasn't just that. I was also suffering losses on a personal
Mm.
level. Like I lost my grandma at the time and I couldn't say goodbye. So that triggered a sense of guilt in me, a guilty feeling. And I had a relationship of almost a course of 10 years that fell apart as well. And I felt lost and abandoned and hurt. So I was trying to deal with the emotions of that breakup as well. And I had professional losses too. Like I lost my job, like a lot of people at the time. So I lost that life and those friends and those connections, which they were dear to me as well in a way. But yeah, so it was just a lot of losses going through as well. So it's challenging to like navigate those things and keep yourself in balance and serene in a way. So there were moments that and that's what the book is in a way about, like this journey of dark night of the soul. There are moments that you go through heavy emotions, and then there were days that were more easy flowing. And there were moments that were almost like neutral, where I stand still and meditate and reflect. And I try to gather lessons from each one of those moments, the good, the bads. And that's what I put in the book. Like I divided this book into sections where you have, and I play a little bit of a Wikipedia girl, where I put little definitions on each section of how I interpret the notion of fear, the notion of love, the notion of despair, the notion of stillness, the notion of meditation. So I go through those things and the lessons in a very poetic way
Mm.
when I talk in this book. So yeah, it's a collection of lessons of how I hermited through this process of lockdowns, but also my own losses, which may not be the same as other people's losses, but I feel like it's the emotions that truly connect us as humans. We're all spiritual beings having a human experience. I think that's really the emotions that we have here that connects us. And that's what ultimately motivated me to publish the book. Not so much like, oh, I'm the best, I'm gonna, you know, like it's not even what I have to say. It's the emotions that I felt like there might be something here that might trigger you, that might connect you, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was what really got me excited. That spark that I'm like, I'm gonna do it. Even though I'm terrified, I'm gonna do it.
It's happening now.
Yeah, no, I remember when I realized that the book was coming, the deadlines approach. I think we even had a conversation, and I was like, "Oh my God, Nicola, I'm freaking out. The book is out there. It's going to be out there." Because it, in a way, it's like a vulnerable side of myself as well. Like I'm putting myself, I told my family in a very jokey way, like joking way, it's a mental playboy of myself.
I love that. Yeah, like you're kind of like naked,
Yeah, my
naked on the page.
naked,
Your
naked, but
words.
it's my mind. Yeah, no, it's a mental playboy.
That's such a great way to describe.
They laugh.
Yeah.
I was like, you should be a comedian. I was like, I don't know, but yeah, that's how I felt.
Yeah,
The best
and
way.
you're not alone in that. Pretty much every author that I work with and we work with at the Unbound Press, like has those feel as it comes to the point where the book is actually going to be out there. It's like, oh, I really wanted this, and now I'm not sure. Can I just kind of keep it just for me? But these books, they have like an essence, a spirit, a soul of their own. They want to be out there, and growing flowers from within definitely does want to be out there in the world. So here we go.
Yeah, yeah, it was just something I love it because in a way I compare it to a pregnancy because I mean obviously some people they plan their pregnancy but some people they don't, and then when they experience it's amazing, and they even say, oh, I wouldn't even go for it but it happened so I went along. I think my experience is sort of like that as well. Like I sort of like went along and I accept whatever wanted to come out, and that's also part of the lessons in my life, particularly allowing things to happen. I am by default a very anxious person. Like a lot of us, we have tendencies to plan our future, not live in the moment, way worried about what's going to happen what's next, without enjoying the moment. And I feel like allowing is a very important lesson as well that I talk about in the book. Allowing, sitting with yourself, enjoying the experience, enjoying the moment. I mean, it's easier said than done, but it's still, I think it's very important. And there's always going to be a new lesson. There's always going to be something extra to tell. Even my book, I look at it, I was like, oh, but maybe I should have added this extra thing. There were moments throughout the experience that I wanted to edit more things that I was like, maybe it's missing something, maybe, but I feel like there will always be another book. There will always be also new lessons to come. And I think the purpose of it is like the book itself, it served what it was supposed to serve, to tell the story, to tell the journey. And I think that's the bigger picture is much more important.
Yeah, trusting that what's come through is exactly what was meant to come through. And I wanted to ask you about that because I just find it quite amazing, like this poetry that has just flowed out of you. I mean, was that a kind of conscious decision to write in this poetic way, or was that just what naturally happened when you came to the page?
I think, I don't know, I think it was a bit of 50-50. Like maybe there was a conscious ways because I talk a lot about the journey of the dark night of the soul. And for those who don't know, like Dark Night of the Soul is like this spiritual journey where you go through a lot of losses and trauma and you face your fears and you navigate through that experience until you do this change, this ego death and change in your life. But because this experience is so heavy, I thought in a poetic way, it could even be a little bit, I wanted to put a little bit of a spin. I wanted to put a bit of a light. Hey, although this is heavy, at the end of the day, it will leave you with an amazing gift. It will give you a present. So in a way, it was a conscious way to use poetry to make it less heavy. But in another way, it's just how I write, like I saw it and I felt it, and emotions to me, they came in a way that were much more poetic, I think, than, like, oh, I'm going to sit and write about emotions. But emotions is something very flowy and organic. It's not something that you really sit and write like you would write a self-help book or a psychology book. Like those things, you might use technical terms and terminologies. Whereas a poetic book, I think it's something much more like emotional, which is exactly what the book is about, like dealing with these emotions. So there is an element of consciousness, yes, but there's also an element of unconsciousness, because to me it flows naturally. Like, it's emotions. Like, how am I gonna talk about emotions if it's not in a poetic way? But I will say, when you told me that this was one of the first, I think, books of poetry from your press, I freaked out a bit, because I was like, oh my gosh, that's a huge responsibility.
No pressure.
Yeah, but yeah.
The Unbound woman goes first, and that's what you are doing. You're like carving a new way with this book. And I know, like, there's always, somebody who has to go first, and there will be more poetry definitely coming through the Unbound press. And with your book, Carol, we've spoken about this, the way, like, it has this fairy tale quality. And I think it's something that you maybe didn't recognize in it. And you were saying just before we hit record that holding the book in your hands and going back through it, you can really feel that now.
Yeah, I it's funny, like even the cover illustration, when I send the art for a friend, she was like, oh, it's very fairy tale-ish. And I was like, that's interesting, because the Dark Night of the Soul experience is not like what I write in the book is not fairy tale-ish at all. Like, I just to give a quick spoiler, the first topic, one of the first topics that I go through is it's a notion of bleeding, and I talk about fears and heavy emotions, like despair, anger, so it has nothing fairy tale-ish in that sense. But the book itself has a very journey of fairy tale-ish, even when I hold it, as we were speaking earlier. I think because it was also intended to be this way. Like, I wanted you, the reader, to experience this as an opportunity, as a not something like, oh my God, we as humans, we hate things that are heavy and bad. But if we understand that that is also a piece of ourselves that we're claiming back, you're not just claiming good part of yourselves, you're claiming bad part of yourselves, because it's through the darkness that you're going to reach light. But I wanted to make that journey like as pleasant as possible, in a way, because I wanted you to see that at the end, it's not just there will be light. The light is sort of a given. It's that you're going to end up with the gift to trust yourself, the gift to trust your intuition, the gift to separate what's right and what's bad for you, the gift of like, this person is in alignment for me. This is toxic. This Unbound press, this is a company I want to be with. These people are my community. These people vibe with me. This is not for me. This job is toxic. This, whatever it is, that's the gift. And this is why I wanted it to be poetic. Like, I want it to be fairy tale-ish, because it really is, although it doesn't come in a nice emotional state. It's almost like the opposite of don't judge a book by its cover. I wanted it to be like the opposite. Like, no, actually judge my book by the cover.
Yeah.
I'm inviting you,
please.
I'm inviting you to come here and enjoy darkness, because it's going to be through the darkness that you're going to understand your own flaws. And those
Yeah.
things are important, because when you understand your flaws, you're not going to repeat the same mistakes, the patterns. Like, you're going to raise your consciousness. You're going to be able to see, oh my God, this is why I keep attracting the same type of boyfriends. This is why I keep going through the same experience in jobs, like job after job, that are like not in vibe with me, or these friends, or whatever. I have this toxic dynamic with a family member, or whatever it is for you. But this is why, because you have these flaws, these pieces that that you neglect. And those are the seeds, the flowers that you should grow from within and learn from them.
Oh, Carol,
Sure.
just amazing. I love hearing you. I'm kind of taken back to the first time we connected and hearing you, like, before I'd even read any of your words, I just felt so connected to what you were creating. And for me, like, that fairy tale quality, because fairy tales can be pretty dark. Yes, we kind of can focus on the happy ever after, but the whoever are the characters in the fairy tale often have to go through these challenges. And I feel like what you've done with this book is, like, you're able to hold the reader in those dark moments, and to show, like, the beauty that can be present even in the darkness, like that streams through your words. And like you say, you just hold space for your reader to go on their own journey through their experience, like in the most amazing and powerful way through your words. So thank you so much for bringing them through and for sharing them.
It's an honor for me. I feel so lucky and so grateful to have met your company, to have met you, and all the people, the connections, and being able to share these stories and being able to tell the lessons. And I hope that those things can help other people to flourish and really take opportunity to claim their pieces, the good, the bad, the whole thing. I want you to grow your garden. I want you to grow your whole pieces, the good. That's what makes, like, a rose has thorns. What do you think the thorn is? The thorn is the not so fun piece.
Yeah.
There are flowers that they have properties that are very toxic for you, but you can also take and make some extracts and teas and things that will help you during a disease. I'm not an expert on that area, but I'm just saying that those things do exist, like, it's the duality of life, the oxymoronic thing. You can't see something if it's not contrast, the black and white, and yin and yang. And
Completely.
I don't know. I think we have a tendency to focus a lot on the beauty, on, even Instagram and all those things, like, oh, it's, a life sometimes that we not necessarily have, like, a lot of people on Instagram, they're actually sad. They're just posting stuff to the world, but they're being hypocritical to themselves. Like, come on, like, you shut that off and you know that you're not that happy. Why not try to stand still and listen and heal those things? And really, I'm not saying don't use Instagram and do those things. Those things are fun. If that ticks your box, great. But also take that time to acknowledge that there is a part of you that you might be neglecting because you rejected. Oh no, I don't like my flaw. I'm going to brush it off. I'm going to put a makeup. No, try to embrace that too. Understand that too. I saw, and it was from your company, one lady, she completely got naked in front of the screen on an Instagram. And I was like, wow, that's so brave, like, she's really embracing herself in all the good and the bad and everything. And that's just beautiful to see. It's really a flower blossoming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
forgot her name, but I saw in one of your posts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna name one here. But actually, I was mesmerized. I was like, wow, this is so, it takes courage. It takes courage. But I think when you face your fears, that's usually when you get the best results and things in life. And it's so worth it, I think.
Completely. Oh, well, like I said, Carol, thank you so much for facing your fears and getting naked on the page.
Oh man. I know people cannot see me, but my face almost all the time is red. I very shy. It's still something I'm working through, I guess. But for me personally, it's more the idea of being comfortable with my own emotions.
Yeah.
In a way, that's something I have a long road to learn as ahead. But it's yeah, I invite you and the readers to, take a look at yourselves and, feel inspired and listen to truly to your own intuition, to your own voice, that inner voice telling you this feels right, this is good, this is bad for me. But even the things that trigger you to a negative reaction, maybe play a little detective, go try
Yeah.
to investigate, because that could lead to something amazing, a discovery. It's not a masochist thing. I'm not telling you to sit and like, oh, love and pain and sadness and darkness. No, I'm telling you to just investigate some of your trigger and your emotions, because those things might give you very important clues about yourself,
Mm.
about your life, about how you see things, and maybe that can help you shift and bring positive change to your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Carol, for those listening who want to find out more about you and your work, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
So the best way would be through my podcast, the Soft
Mhm.
Breeze podcast. It's available on iTunes, Spotify, all the major ones. I share content there about emotions. I put myself a little bit in the spot, vulnerable, you know. That's where I am currently sharing extra content in this topic of spiritual journey and lessons. I really like that. I have intentions to bring guests in the future as well to the podcast. Yeah, and then there's all the information there, like my emails and things, if you want to message me directly, inbox me. I left social media, but I guess I could go on and on about the reasons why. So I'll just keep it short. It just wasn't super healthy environment for me anymore. It became a little bit disconnected from reality and somewhat toxic and not in alignment with who I am and where I want to take my life, which again goes to the Unbound, listening to your intuition, listen what's right for you. Even if everyone else is doing that, might not be the thing for you, and that's okay too. So yeah. So the best way would be my podcast for the moment.
Amazing. We'll make sure that there's the link to your podcast so people can just click through and find you easily. And yeah, I mean, I know you're not alone with the social media piece. So thank you for mentioning that and being brave enough to step away, because I know a lot of people are feeling the same. And I really appreciate that about you. Carol, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicola. I just, it's always amazing when I talk to you, and it's always too little short of a time when we talk. I feel like you and we could spend an entire 24 hours talking and talking, and the day would go by and we would be like, oh my gosh.
Well, just know I'm coming to visit you at some point. So
summer. Like now, it's actually really nice today, but do come in the summer. It's actually the best time here in BC. Vancouver gets really beautiful in the summer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
would.
day.
I would. Yeah, we go for coffee, for tea. We have some fun at the beach.
Yeah. Yeah. Excuse us, everyone. We're just arranging to meet up in Vancouver. So
Yeah. Yeah, but it's nice. It's exactly how I wanted the conversation to go as well. Like a very fun conversation. This conversation doesn't even feel like a podcast. It feels to me like we were in a coffee shop, just chit chatting.
That's the way it is. That's the way it is in the
And that's the best way, the most honest, sincere, truthful way possible.
Exactly.
And that's how I like it.
Exactly.